Good morning or good afternoon, whenever it is that you're tuning in to this video. Now, the lovely weather we've had over the last week, it might make you long to go to the beach. My family has always enjoyed trips to the coast, whether that be North Wales or Devon or the North East or Cornwall. And when we were kids, our dad used to take us out early in the morning. We'd put on our wetsuits and stuff and our bodyboards, and we'd jump out into the sea, whatever the weather, to enjoy riding the waves in to the beach. But one particular time though, I'll tell you a story. My dad was enjoying his bodyboarding off a Cornish beach, but pretty soon he realised that something was wrong. He was being pulled out to sea much faster than he could kick himself back towards the shore. A little bit of panic started to set in, as you can imagine. What was he going to do? He was completely helpless and completely powerless to save himself. There was nothing else for it. He just had to throw his hands up in the air and cry out for help to the beach. And the annoyingly good lifeguards, covered in muscles and yellow vests, they saw his distress, they got on their bright yellow surfboards and they swam out to sea to save him. Eventually, they got to my dad out in the Cornish Sea. But for that to happen, Dad had to admit that he needed help. He couldn't help himself at all. Our thought for the day comes from Matthew chapter 5, from the part known as the Beatitudes. Jesus is just at the start of his ministry and he's teaching to the crowds. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." Verse 3, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Jesus says, deeply joyful, helpful, and content, independent of the circumstances, are those who are poor in spirit. Poor in spirit. The one who feels and knows deeply their failure, their inadequacy, perhaps a feeling of shame and guilt. Perhaps it's someone who's humbled before the perfection of a holy and perfect God. It's someone who's come to see that they're not self-sufficient, that they're not in control of their lives. They're at the end of themselves. They've got nowhere else to go. The poor in spirit, they're the spiritually helpless, the inwardly rock bottom. The poor in spirit. It's to these that Jesus says the kingdom of heaven belongs, though. The kingdom of heaven. Knowledge of God, God's rule in and over their lives, a new king in their lives, a new reign. Why, though? Why does this belong to the poor in spirit? The kingdom of heaven is for those who have realised their spiritual poverty. It's these that cry out to God for mercy, and it's God who, in his grace, gives them all the riches of himself. Do you remember the parable of the tax collector and the Pharisee? Here's the tax collector, he's broken, he realises his sin before God, he understands his failure, and he cries out for mercy. It's all he's got left, it's all he can do. And Jesus says that it's him that went home forgiven. It's him that goes home justified before God. The gospel of Jesus is a message of grace to the spiritually sick who will come to the great physician. Remember, Jesus never went to the cross for you or for me because we had it all worked out and all under control. No, he saw a sinner, didn't he, who needed saving. And he caused you and he caused me, like my dad, stuck out in the ocean. We realised that we needed help and we had to throw our hands up and cry out to him for grace and mercy. While we were lost, the Bible says, Jesus found us. He's called us his own, no matter what. So whatever another day of lockdown brings you, whether you can't handle work and kids at the same time and the house is a complete mess, remember, you're blessed and loved and cherished. Yours is the kingdom of heaven. Whether you feel your life spinning out of control, remember you've got a loving king called Jesus. Maybe you're feeling the financial pinch, or you can't face another day of complete lockdown boredom. Jesus is close to those who feel powerless, and he is the ruler in the chaos of this life. Maybe you're at the end of your tether, caring for a sick family member, or grieving a loss, and you're feeling weak. remember that his strength will abound in your weakness. Remember that God is close to those at the end of their earthly resources. He's close to the spiritually spent. Remember the gospel of grace to you in Jesus. Remember that you really are blessed regardless of the circumstance. In your weakness and helplessness, whilst maybe you feel that it's all out of control, let go of that need to be in control and allow yourself to be driven to the Rock of Ages. The Message version puts verse 3 of Matthew chapter 5 like this: "You're blessed when you're at the end of your rope, because with less of you, there is more of God and his rule." God bless you guys today.